When a corporation repurchases its stock, one method to account for this is called the Treasury Stock method. Treasury stock is viewed as a temporary reduction in shareholders' equity to be reversed later when they eventually sell it. It's issued only, it's no longer outstanding. It's viewed as a distribution of corporate assets to the shareholders, and it can offset an increase in shares routinely issued to employees under stock award plans. That could be why they purchase it. There's another method, it's called retired shares. So there's Treasury Stock method, and there's the retired stock method. We're going to look at the Treasury Stock method, and the difference is if it's retired, you record it when you buy it at its original par value. And if it's Treasury stock, you record it at its cost. So the retired method is called the par method. The Treasury stock method is called the cost method. And that's just a way to remember how to do it. It may be purchased with the intent to distribute stock dividend or for a proposed merger or perhaps to defend against a hostile takeover. But the key to remember when you invest in your own stock, it's not an asset. It's not an investment account. It is a contra equity, and there's a reason for that. Distribution of profits without paying dividends is what a treasury stock purchase is thought to be. You cannot manipulate income or manipulate your dividends by suddenly buying a bunch so that you get paid the dividends that you're about to declare. That's why the rule is no dividends are paid to treasury stock. And that's why treasury stock is no longer considered outstanding. So looking at the cost method, or otherwise called the treasury stock method, it's recorded at cost at the time of purchase, so it's kind of like buying an asset. You may sell it later at an actual gain or loss, but there's a special rule. You're not allowed to record a gain or a loss on the income statement, even though in reality it could occur. You could buy it at its cost. Let's say you buy it at $10 a share, later sell it at $12 a share. In reality, you have a $2 gain, but you're not allowed to call it that. Instead, you record that $2 gain directly in an equity account. And that is a special rule. Very important FASB rule, so important enough to be repeated. Treasury stock sales are never recorded as a gain or loss to the income statement. Instead, if a gain or loss does occur, it's treated as an increase or a decrease to equity. And that's to prevent the over- or understatement of income, prevent earnings management. Treasury stock transactions bypass the income statement. They're directly recorded on the balance sheet as a decrease or an increase of equity when they're resold. And the key to remember, investing in your own stock is not an asset, is a contra equity. So the normal balance is a debit. So the normal balance is the same as an asset, but remember it's not an asset. So let's say the current market value is 15. I buy it, I record it as treasury stock. Kind of looks like an asset, but it's not. It's a contra equity. Cash goes out the door. Then later, if I sell it for the same price, there is no gain or loss. But now let's say I sell it for 20. I put it on my books at 15. I take it off my books at 15. I pay 20. That $5 difference in reality is a $5 gain. I'm just not allowed to call it that. Instead, it goes into an additional paid-in capital stock repurchase account to track the gain. Now let's say I sell it at a loss, but let's say I already have 5 sitting in that APIC account. This represents a total $7 loss, but I can't call it that. So first I clear out the contributed capital account, the APIC stock repurchase. The remaining $2 loss comes directly out of retained earnings. And if I didn't have anything in the APIC account, the entire 7 would come out of retained earnings. It's not recorded on the income statement. It comes out of retained earnings instead. The end result is the same. Let's say I could record a loss. That loss would close to retained earnings in the same manner. This is to prevent earnings management, to have earnings higher than is appropriate on the income statement. Another thing to remember is a contributed capital account, that APIC, cannot have a negative balance. It's a paid-in capital. It's not a paid-out capital. So if you remember those two classifications, contributed capital and internally generated capital, retained earnings can have a deficit. It can have a negative balance. And that would be a liquidating dividend. And you'd see a negative balance on that equity account. But a contributed capital, you're not allowed to have a negative balance. You cannot go below zero. So just to refresh, a treasury stock, a gain or loss can occur when you resell treasury stock at more or less than the original purchase price. The original purchase is recorded at cost, not par value. The treasury stock method is the cost method. Gains or losses are recorded indirectly to equity on resale of the treasury stock. The key to remember, treasury stock sales never record a gain or loss to the income statement. Always bypasses and is adjusted to equity account. And you can never have a negative balance on that account. If you have a loss and you don't have anything in paid-in capital share repurchase, it all comes out of retained earnings.